Disdain in London, from the Esmeralda King series of books by Kathryn Louise. Chapter 1. A Dark Secret. You must stop him. He's out of control. Too many innocent lives have been destroyed already. Enough is enough. Carol Faraday finally managed to say as her last breath gently filtered through from her lungs, out of her lifeless body, and lingered in the cold and eerie hospital room. Her already grey complexion turned to a darkened ashen colour, and her eyelids closed for the very last time. Andrew sobbed uncontrollably, still clutching onto his mother's cold hand beside the bed. The one woman he had always loved so dearly, the only person in the entire world who understood him and knew him for what he really was, or so he thought. Although Andrew had always been close to her, this single moment changed his life in its entirety. A few spoken words altered everything, his entire existence. Not just because of her passing, but because of the information she had just given him. Mrs. Carol Ann Farraday, a retired nurse from West London, was in her late 60s and had become progressively worse from an illness complication. Her Huntington's disease in previous years often caused relapses, but this time it had been fatal. Her fragile body just couldn't take it anymore. Andrew's father, Nicholas Farraday, a clinical director who also worked at a multitude of hospitals in West London, had been the ever faithful and doting husband. The perfect parent, friend, and companion, he was loved by anyone and everyone. Nothing ever seemed to faze him, a man whose heart was so big that he frequently took part in scientific and medical research in his spare time and donated heavily to various charities. He worked a lot of hours, but didn't most parents? All to make ends meet, especially for such a large family. There wasn't anything strange there. Carol had painstakingly spent the past 20 minutes telling her son the secret she had kept him for the full 31 years of his life. She had to. Up until now, she had been sworn to secrecy. The truth was finally out about his identity, something she hadn't revealed to anyone before, a secret so dark and deluded that no one would have believed her anyway. Carol explained to Andrew that she had hidden a memory stick in her jewelry box, tucked away in the bottom drawer of her bedside table, and told Andrew to retrieve it before his father did. It had all the answers to any questions he may have. Nicholas suddenly appeared at the hospital room door. As soon as he realized that his wife had passed and he had missed her last moment on earth, his knees buckled beneath him and he instantly fell to the floor. His brown corduroy trousers creased as he sat in a crumbled mess on the cold floor. His short grey hair was the only thing that he could be seen as he cradled his weathered face in his hands, sobbing louder than his son. Nicholas's body shook as Andrew sat with a brewing rage. He waited ambitiously for his father's face to emerge, but it didn't. "What kind of a sick person are you?" Andrew shouted out in a grief-stricken voice, the saliva building in his tearful mouth spat across the room like an angry hunter about to pounce. His father instantly looked up with a shocked expression. There was silence as their glassy eyes stared at one another. "What do you—" "Don't act like you're the innocent one here. I know the truth. The perfect father, the perfect scientist, blah, blah, blah. How could you? I mean, it's not like I—" Andrew couldn't quite find the words to say what he wanted to, but the anger was continuing to build inside of him. "She told me everything, and I mean everything, just before she—" "Son, if only you—" Nicholas tried to get to his feet and made his way over, but the trauma had caused his legs to stall, and he stumbled to the floor for a second time. Two nurses appeared in the doorway after hearing the commotion and the alarms from Carol's bed to find Nicholas on the floor. The struggling pair failed miserably to lift him to his feet. Andrew saw this as his cue to leave. In a few moments, he kissed his mother's hand, placed it perfectly on the bed by her side, and said, "You are still my mum. Sleep tight, beautiful angel. I loved you with all my heart, and I always will." He stormed out of the room, brushing past his broken father and assisting nurses. He could hear the pain in his father's voice calling after him, but he couldn't go back. Not now. Not ever. The faster Andrew ran along the hospital corridors, the more his heart pounded with anger and resentment. He cried with disdain. continuously wiping away the tears until his cheeks were sore. How could everything he had ever known and been accustomed to be an absolute lie? He thought to himself, unable to comprehend the truth exposed from his mother's words. Little did he know that this was only the beginning. The rest was yet to come. The automatic glass doors slid sideways to open. The cold, windy air hit his face, sending his partially receding hair into chaos. Andrew looked side to side, taking in the drama around him. Ambulances racing into the accident and emergency entrance, injured individuals hobbling to reach help, faces filled with pain or grief seeking a place of safety, aid, and comfort. Andrew searched for a quiet place, somewhere where he could instantly breathe. He felt trapped, intoxicated. He was broken and ashamed all at the same time. His eyes suddenly locked onto the multi-story car park opposite and decided to head in that direction. He reached the first stone-cold concrete pillar, snuck in behind it and pressed his back up against the column, desperately trying to think for a moment. On his own, in a dark, secluded and empty place, he rested his head back, closed his eyes and let the tears flow down his face. The turmoil in his cries echoed, but there was no one there to hear. Had his life been, up until now, a surreal computer game fantasy? In what felt to him like a matter of minutes, the plug had been pulled, and he had been left in a dark, lonely, and empty world with no way of existence in the future. No chance of going back now. This was the point of no return. Andrew began questioning every moment, every life decision, and every event that he had ever experienced, whether he had been a pawn on his father's chessboard all along. There was only one thing left to do: retrieve the memory stick his mother had mentioned and find out the truth she had alluded to find some sort of explanation to this whole nightmare, if there was one. 4 weeks later, it was the near instant sound of the body hitting the concrete ground, 6 floors below, that made onlookers realize the seriousness of what had just happened. They grappled to look over the rooftop bar railings, dreading what they were about to see, but drawn to looking anyway. It seemed surreal. The body of a man in his early 30s scrambled in a mess beneath them. Blood slowly seeped around him, creating a sea of red. His sunglasses were smashed by his side, and the remains of what looked like his internal organs, the pressure as a result of his fall, spattered across the harsh pavement. My ears were ringing, sobbed the young woman, relaying the details. But soon the only thing I could hear were the screams from everyone around us as they joined us to look over the side in slow motion. The police sirens had sprung into action. I will never forget the sounds or images from that day. A moment forever imprinted in my mind. It's almost like a bad dream. But when I wake, I realise that I was there and that I did indeed witness it firsthand. The young woman sobbed. Here, take this, Hunter said as he passed the witness a tissue to wipe her tears and blow her nose. It was highly insensitive asking her for an account of Andrew Faraday's death, but that's what his job was, and she willingly seemed to want to talk about it. There was a knock at the door of the interview room, shortly followed by creaking hinges as Hunter turned around to see who it was. His chief inspector announced his entrance. Thank you, Mr. King. A Mrs. Faraday is waiting in interview room 2 to speak with you. I'll take over here, and if you wish to leave and join her, I think it's important you get her statement too. He nodded his head in authority as he swapped seats with Hunter. Interview room 2 was a little smaller than room 1 and significantly more private, perfect for a more sensitive conversation, and there was no one better than Hunter to lead that. He had such a way with people that made them open up. They seemed to be at ease with him. Hunter opened the scratched, pain-flaking door to reveal a petite, blonde-haired woman with red, tear-stained eyes looking down. She was perched uncomfortably on the white plastic chair behind the desk, clinging to her coat for solace. It was early spring in London, and as a result, the days hadn't quite warmed. The police station was always in a constant state of freezing, no matter what the time of year was. A persistent chill swirled around the office from the air conditioning. Good afternoon, Mrs. Faraday. Hunter said as he pulled the chair opposite her towards him and sat down. He had already placed the file of papers relating to her husband, Andrew, death on the table between them and waited until she was ready to make eye contact. She sniffed and dabbed at her nose for a while with a screwed up piece of tissue. It had only been 24 hours since Andrew's body had dramatically slammed down on the pavement outside St. Paul's Cathedral. "Can I see what's in the file?" she asked as she lifted her head and looked directly at Hunter. "I'm not so sure you'll want to see that," he replied. The photographic evidence at the scene of Andrew's death after he had hit the ground with such force from 6 floors up was enough to make even the strongest of stomachs feel nauseous. "I just don't understand. You put it in front of me. How could I not want to look at it?" Her words trailed off as she tried to regain composure. I still don't understand why he would leave us." The emotion took hold of her as she broke down. "I'm really sorry, Mrs. Farraday. Or Jenny. Can I call you Jenny?" It was more to familiarize myself with the case. Hunter tried mumbling a few words of condolence again, but it made no difference at all. Her body shook uncontrollably as the thought of her husband no longer being there fueled her composure. "It's okay. I understand," she sniffled. "I know my colleague spoke to you yesterday, but do you have any idea as to why your husband would have done this, or how he had been feeling the past few days before he—" Hunter paused and waited for her to answer. She swallowed heavily before replying. "I know he was grieving his mother's death, just as I did with mine, but—" She stopped to look deeper at Hunter with broken eyes. "But what?" he asked. "Something also died in him the day he passed. I tried to be there for Andy, but he—" "Go on," Hunter prompted her to continue. "He seemed obsessed. Something had been eating away at him, very secretive, on edge. It was if there was something else that he didn't want me to know." She brushed her hair away from around her face. "But you have no idea what could have been?" he asked, bringing the papers closer to him. "No. I didn't even realize he hadn't been to work at all until his manager called to offer his condolences. He would leave the same time every day and return the same time in the evening. I would ask him how his day had been, and he was vague in his replies, but never once did he say that he hadn't gone. So I just presumed." She seemed to be searching for answers from Hunter, but he was just as clueless as she was. If he wasn't going to work, where the hell was he? Hunter didn't have the answers. He professionally remained impartial. "So you say he wasn't going to work, but he left each day and returned at the same time, and you have no idea where else he could have been?" Hunter made notes as he spoke, just in case it gave him some insight into the events leading to Andrew's untimely death. "Maybe to see a close friend, a family member, perhaps?" "I ask myself over and over again if he was having an affair," Jenny continued. "Who was he with or going to see? Was it the shame of what he was doing that he couldn't live with? I But I just don't think he would do that. He showed very little emotion the last few days. I'm afraid that's not something I would know," Hunter replied awkwardly. "You were the only next of kin we were made aware of, and we are still trying to understand the reasoning behind it. We had hoped you would be able to shed some light." Hunter seemed disappointed. "I mean, Inspector King, can I ask you a question?" She tilted her head, ready to fire away. "Sure," he responded apprehensively. "What sort of a man would take his own life, to plan it beforehand, every little detail, to have the courage to jump from the top of a London city building, knowing full well that he would leave us with the same pain and hurt that he experienced from losing his own mother? Then to do that to me, to us, in the middle of the afternoon, in full view of everyone? Something must have happened. I mean, He was content in life, or so I thought. His daughter, so young, only 4 years old, he loved her so, so much. None of this makes any sense. Jenny stopped and shrugged, shaking her head in disbelief. Growing up without a father, would never have wanted that for his little girl. I just can't comprehend it. He could see the emotion and pain building inside her. Hunter let her say everything she wanted to get out into the open. I'm really sorry. I can't begin to imagine. It must be so. She cut him off before he could continue. Premeditated? He planned it so perfectly. Who in their right mind would do that? And it can't have been just from the death of his mother. He knew it was coming. She'd been ill for a long time. He was fine right up until the day she passed. It was as if. What do you mean premeditated? Hunter asked. Did they not tell you? She looked confused at Hunter. He transferred the entire contents of his bank account into our joint account and then sent his savings to his daughter, Primrose's, her trust fund, hours before he jumped. The smallest of tears rolled down her solemn eyes and down to her cheek. She wiped it away with the side of her hand and cleared her throat. I had a horrible gut feeling in my stomach minutes after I saw the money being transferred to our accounts. Why else would he suddenly do that without speaking to me? Then I received a message that I will never, ever forget. Jenny broke down once again, her shoulders shaking. She sobbed uncontrollably, swiping the few strands of her scruffy tied up hair that hung free over her face out of the way of her eyes. Very gently, she slid her mobile phone across the desk towards Hunter to show him the message, watching his reaction as he did so. Hunter held it tentatively in both hands, using his finger to scroll down, scanning the text as he read it quietly to himself. He didn't know Andrew Farraday, but was surprised to find this email disturbingly heartfelt, a powerful and loving last message from a devoted husband to his wife and family. Hunter strategically cleared his throat multiple times just to refrain from showing any emotion. He didn't want to appear anything other than in control. He shuffled uncontrollably in his chair, but continued as best he could. My dearest Jenny, my darling, my love, I couldn't find the words to tell you myself, so I took the coward's way out. I know this must be hard for you to read, but for reasons beyond my control, I can no longer continue with this life, not knowing what I know now. I don't want Primrose to be part of a future that lies in store for me or us, and I want her to have no connection to my side of the family or the history that will forever cast a shadow over her. I have made all necessary plans and ensured that you will both lead a comfortable life without me. I'm so proud of the mother you have become, and I am sad that I won't witness the growing of your beautiful daughter Primrose into the beautiful young lady she will no doubt become. I loved you more than life itself, so please understand I am doing this for you and ultimately her. Until we meet again on the other side, yours forever, A. And a kiss. Hunter looked up to find Jenny staring back at him, cold, empty, and frozen. It doesn't make sense, does it? She said, as if Hunter had written the letter himself. What does he not know? I don't understand. No connection to his side of the family? Why? Jenny leaned in and turned from an upset, distraught wife to an empty soul. Your daughter? He said your daughter. Why not our daughter? No, it doesn't make sense at all. What have his family said? Hunter scrolled to the end of the message, checking there wasn't anything else he was missing, but there wasn't. His family have said nothing. His father, Nicholas, has been an absolute mess since Carol, his mother, passed, and has no idea what Andrew was talking about. He said he left the hospital in an emotional mess and hadn't been able to get hold of him since. He has a brother he rarely speaks of and doesn't live in this country, so I can't imagine it's got anything to do with him. He did have a sister, but I think she passed at a young age. They never really want to speak about it. Jenny shrugged in apathy. So what are the police going to do about it now? She shuffled back into the chair, sliding it in closer towards the desk and resting her connected hands on top, waiting for an answer. I'm sorry, I'm not sure I follow you, Hunter replied, wearing a confused expression and passing the phone back to Jenny. Who is going to find out why my husband jumped off a London rooftop? She clarified. And how was he able to? I understand there weren't security or safety barriers. Why didn't anybody stop him? I know this must be extremely painful. I can't begin to imagine what you're going through. And Andrew's death is unfathomable. Trust me, we are looking to this and the venue and the surroundings as well as any surveillance, but there doesn't seem to be any foul play involved. So I'm not sure what we. He pursed his lips together. What on earth do you mean? She leaned in. I mean, we have been speaking to witnesses at the scene and we will be running through all the footage, but if he did do this of his own free will, the police won't be able to do much more. I'm afraid. You see, there are so many suicides in the City of London that we can't possibly investigate every single one. It would be. Hunter felt terrible, but there was unfortunately nothing he could do. He knew Chief Inspector Craddock wouldn't entertain him by taking on the case if there was no foul play involved. There may well have been something contributing to him wanting to jump, but that is not something we can investigate for you. I'm afraid I'm so sorry. If he was pushed or coerced into it, then that is another matter. Unless you think. But surely. Jenny rudely butted in. She knew it was no use. Her eyes were buckling with tears. Surely there must be something. Her words felt empty and withdrawn. I mean, it just doesn't sit right, does it? She would have pleaded more if she'd felt she would have had a better outcome, but she knew deep down that it wouldn't make the blindest bit of difference. She knew it was a lost cause. Hunter slumped back into his chair. His thoughts diverted to this poor woman's plea for help and ways to make things slightly better than they were. He searched the room with his eyes for clues and to think of answers for this poor woman's sanity. If you were in my shoes and you had just lost your soulmate, the father to your daughter, what would you do? What would you want answers? Her last words lingered in Hunter's consistence, pushing him to do something. Hunter sat up but lowered his voice, checking the cameras in the room and turning slightly to avoid the angle of the recording. There is one person who may be able to help you, but I want to iterate that sometimes when we are emotionally distressed from losing a loved one, we look for answers that perhaps just aren't there. His voice was a loud whisper. He tried to look at her with a reassuring half smile. Look at this picture. He pointed with his finger to a piece of paper as he lifted the cover of the folder. Is this definitely your husband? Hunter wrote down Esmeralda King's number and her name and turned it to face Jenny so she could make a note, nodding his head at her in code. Jenny's attention quickly moved back to her mobile phone as she set up a new contact and entered the digits under the desk, reading the piece of paper that Hunter was showing her. As far as the interview recording was concerned, Hunter hadn't given Jenny Esmeralda's number, but he knew he had to help. Yes, it is. That is my husband. Jenny nodded, playing along with Hunter's game. Hunter looked up just as she hit save, locked her screen and placed it back into her handbag. So if there is nothing further to add, I will stop the recording there. Hunter clicked the recorder, noted the date and time and her details and sat back in his chair once again. King? Any relation to you? She quizzed, looking straight at him. Possibly. Hunter wasn't giving anything away. He never did, even when the conversation wasn't being recorded. And how might she be able to help me? Jenny asked. Let's just say she isn't affiliated with the police, but may be able to help you get the answers that you are looking for. I get it. Can't help, won't help. Jenny stood up impatiently, slammed her chair into the table, and instantly made Hunter jump. Look, it's not that we just can't. He tried to reason with her, but she just wasn't interested. He watched her walk to the door, grab the handle, and leave the room in a tantrum. Thank you for your time, Inspector, but I will see myself out. Jenny threw her handbag over her shoulder and pulled her coat firmly across her chest, folding her arms in the process, and stormed out of the station. Hunter tried to keep up to ensure that he'd left the station, but she was an enraged woman on a mission and managed to get further ahead until he watched her leave the building in the distance. He had hoped it was the last time he would see her. Not in a bad way, but some cases had a tendency to rear their ugly heads from time to time. He hoped it wasn't one of those.